Dear friends, from ASEAN countries, good morning. My name is Zhu Renzong. I am the Secretary of API Subchamber from China Chamber of Commerce for import and export of medicines and health products. I have worked in CCC-MHPIE for 8 years, and I have in-depth research and insights on the policies, markets, and industries in the field of pharmaceuticals, especially APIs. It's a great honor for me to share my views on opportunity of APIs between China and ASEAN. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, China has supplied a large number of pharmaceutical products and medical supplies to ASEAN countries and the whole world, including many APIs used to fight the epidemic. ASEAN has been a very important API trading partner for China for a long time. Nowadays, ASEAN is China's third largest API trading partner, accounting for 10% of China's API imports and exports. Next, I will share my views on the cooperation between China and ASEAN from four aspects: the development overview of China's API industry, our bilateral trade on APIs, China's regulation on APIs, and the cooperation prospect of China and ASEAN's API industry. First, let's take a quick look on the development overview of China's API industry. The first picture shows the scale of the global API market. It is estimated that in 2020, the global API market was worthy of $175.7 billion US, with a compound annual growth rate of 5% in the past 10 years and an annual growth rate of 5 to 6% in the next 5 years. Driving forces may include the growth of the global pharmaceutical market, the aspiration of patents for original drugs, more attention to APIs, and increased investment in APIs. In terms of market share, North America accounts for 40%, Europe for 27%, and Asia for 20%. In terms of supply, China can account for more than a quarter. China, India, and Europe are the major global suppliers of APIs. China mainly supplies common APIs, pharmaceutical intermediates, and special APIs. At present, China's API Contract Development Manufacturer Organization's business, or CDMO as we call it, is making headway in China, through which China supplies many customized APIs and intermediates to domestic and foreign pharmaceutical companies for their R&D of new drugs. This is a fast-growing field. According to the data of the National Bureau of Statistics of China, the prime operating revenue of China's chemical API in 2020 was 394.5 billion yuan RMB, which has declined compared to that 3 years ago. The main reason is that environmental and safety regulation, supply side reform, and other macro policies were carried out, expelling some companies out of the market and somewhat reducing the capacity. According to the National Medical Products Administration of China, there were 4,460 Chinese API and FDF manufacturers in 2020, of which 1,642 were API manufacturers that have drug production licenses and comply with GMP standards. In recent years, China has become the world's largest API producer and exporter, and our annual export keeps rising each year. This histogram shows the export situation of China's APIs with statistics made by our Chamber of Commerce. I want to explain that APIs here include pharmaceutical intermediates in our API range. According to the data, the export volume of China's APIs in 2020 is 10.12 million tons, with a year-on-year growth of 7.5%, and the export amount is $35.7 billion, with a year-on-year growth of 6%. APIs produced in China has been exported to 190 countries and regions around the world. I have marked the top 10 export countries on the chart. They are India, the US, Japan, South Korea, several EU countries, Brazil, and Vietnam is also on the list. These countries account for more than 60% of China's total export for APIs. Let's take a look at the specific API varieties China exported APIs last year. Most of the APIs for producing anti-pandemic drugs did well in export last year, such as anti-infections, vitamins, hormones, antipyretics, and some antibiotics. Some products performed outstandingly, such as dexamethasone, which increased by more than 50%, VCVE, and lamivudine by more than 30%. The pandemic may be the reason behind the growth. For one thing, the pandemic generated global demand for APIs. For another, while API manufacturers overseas were hit by the pandemic, the Chinese manufacturers were the first to resume operation as we contained the pandemic quickly, thus ensuring the global supply. China is not only a major API producer and exporter, but also a major importer who has a high demand for APIs. China's import of APIs shows an increasing trend for these years. In 2018 and 2019, the import reached a record high of $10.75 billion, and in 2020, the import decreased due to the impact of the epidemic, reaching $9.7 billion. I marked the top 10 import source countries on the chart, among which imports from European countries and the US account for more than half of the total. Singapore is also among the top 10. Next, let's look at the current situation of the trade of APIs between China and ASEAN. From 2011 to 2019, the trade volume of APIs between China and ASEAN increased from 2.53 billion US dollars to 4.33 billion US dollars, with a compound annual growth rate of 6.1%. According to statistics from our Chamber of Commerce, due to the impact of the pandemic in 2020, the volume of import and export of APIs between China and ASEAN declined slightly to 4.31 billion US dollars. The export to ASEAN was 3.34 billion US dollars, with a year-on-year increase of 1%, and the import from ASEAN was 970 million US dollars, decreased by 5%. As for what APIs China exported to the ASEAN market, the major variety were amino acids, vitamins, anti-infections, penicillins, and antipyretics. In 2020, most of the products with better export performance were antipyretics or anti-pandemic or related products like vitamins, antipyretics, hormones, antibiotics, and so on. This chart shows the change in the proportion of China's APIs export to the 10 ASEAN countries in the past 10 years. We can see that the top 3 markets have always been Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand, which together accounted for 2/3 of China's total API export to ASEAN. One reason is that these 3 countries have a larger population, so they have a relatively large demand of medicines. Another reason is that they have quite a number of local pharmaceutical companies. Since the government encourages localized manufacturing and domestic supply, these local pharmaceutical companies import APIs from China, India, and other countries to produce finished products. China's API export to Vietnam has grown rapidly, making Vietnam's proportion rising from 19% to 25%. In fact, Vietnam has been the fastest growing pharmaceutical market in Asia in recent years. Besides rapid economic development, the government's investment in the pharmaceutical industry and encouragement on production all contribute to the growth of its pharmaceutical industry. Now, let's turn to import. What APIs does China import from ASEAN? The major ones are amino acids, the antivirus, and some alcohol-based pharmaceutical chemicals, such as methionine, lamivudine, glycerin, and so on. However, due to the impact of COVID-19 in 2020, the import of these varieties has declined. We can see that the China's API import from ASEAN last year had basically the same layout as that of 10 years ago. Singapore ranked first, from which China imported methionine and lamivudine. Malaysia ranked second, from which China imported methionine and glycerin. Together with Indonesia and Thailand, these 4 countries accounted for almost all APIs exported from ASEAN to China. Here, I have to explain that although methionine is almost used as a feed additive, it is treated as an API in our statistics since it has strong medicinal value and can be used to protect the liver. China has always been a major importer of methionine. We import 400 million US dollars of methionine worldwide every year, and 60% to 70% comes from Singapore and Malaysia. Now, let's look at the new changes in the trade of APIs between China and ASEAN in 2021. From the data available for the first 3 quarters, we roughly estimate that China's API export to ASEAN was 3.03 billion US dollars, with a year-on-year increase of 20%. The major driving force is still APIs for producing anti-pandemic or relevant drugs, while APIs import from ASEAN to China was 1.13 billion US dollars, with a year-on-year increase of 65%. Major imported varieties include methionine, glycerin, and so on, the supply of which decreased last year but has recovered this year. From the figures on the chart, we can find that the price for imported and exported APIs has risen significantly. This is mainly because the prices of bulk commodities, basic chemicals, and cross-border logistics freight have been increasing since the second half of last year, which take their tolls on the trade prices. I know some friends from ASEAN countries want to learn about China's regulations on APIs, especially how Chinese Drug Administration (NMPA) guarantees the quality of API production. I would like to talk about 3 things: registration, GMP inspection, and export management. The first is registration. For all these years, APIs have been brought under supervision as drugs in China. Before 2017, APIs were required to be registered and approved like preparations before they could be produced and sold. However, with the development of China's pharmaceutical industry and the improvement of drug administration, such requirements can no longer keep up with the time. So, starting from 2018, China implemented the system of drug-related associated review and approval and supervision for APIs and finished dosage forms. To explain a little bit, companies with newly developed APIs only need to put them on records in the Drug Evaluation Center of NMPA. After that, each product will get a unique registration number and be labeled as I, which stands for inactivated. However, these APIs cannot go to market at this point, but if FDF companies use some of these APIs in their products to be marketed, they can submit relevant documents for the API to NMPA along with those for FDFs. NMPA will review documents of both APIs and FDFs and label the ratified API as A, which means it's now activated and ready for seal. It is very similar to the DMF system in the US, in which FDF companies are responsible for controlling the quality of APIs. Till this year, the system of drug-related associated review and approval and supervision has functioned for 4 years. More than 14,200 API records were created, including 10,800 activated ones, with the activation rate up to 76%. It is safe to say that this system holds the key to expanding the manufacture and export of APIs. Second, GMP inspections. The GMP inspections on drugs, including APIs, are mainly classified into 4 kinds: licensing inspection, routine inspection, flight inspection, and other inspection. API manufacturers are required to have their licensing inspections when API manufacturers apply for or renew drug production license, reinvent their production lines, or when FDF products in which the API is used are required to take the inspection before marketing. Routine inspection is carried out according to the annual inspection plan by NMPA. Flight inspection is carried out when NMPA spot problems in a company or receive complaints about the company. This is an announced inspection. Other inspection refers to on-site GMP inspection by competent government agencies when a company applies for certain export certificates. I will be elaborated it later. As mentioned above, an API is allowed to use in an FDF once it's labeled as A, and the activated API will be inspected along with the finished dosages in which it is used. In this sense, the registration process for APIs is streamlined, but APIs are put under even more stringent regulations. API manufacturers are subject to both quality controls from FDF companies and regulations from NMPA. It is estimated that in 2020, Chinese pharmaceutical companies were subjected to 3 times inspections of all sorts on average, the most important of which was GMP inspections. This frequency was extremely high compared with that of other countries in the world. Third, export management. which also matters a great deal. NMPA is in charge of drug administration, supervise and regulate domestic drugs in accordance with the Pharmaceutical Administration Law of the People's Republic of China. That means all the regulatory measures I referred to target at sales and application of APIs within the territory of China. For APIs that are manufactured only for export, they are mainly supervised by the government and importing countries. This is an international practice. However, as drug supervision becomes increasingly globalized these days, China is shouldering its responsibility to regulate API exports. Now, please allow me to specify some regulatory measures adopted by NMPA, most of which are suitable for APIs and FDFs. The first measure is the management of export permits for special drugs. The export permit is issued by NMPA, and products with the permit can be released at the custom. Second, common drugs, including APIs, can apply for the certificate of a pharmaceutical product, and APIs exported to the EU can apply for a written confirmation. Third, a catalog is made from 9 kinds of drugs, including APIs and FDFs. You can find the names of these drugs on this page, including on this page. Companies manufacturing drugs in this catalog must have drug production licenses, registered number of approval, COPP, and pass the GMP inspections before exporting their products. For the record, COPP is a measure to promote the export of Chinese medicines and have wide access to global pharmaceuticals. It is made on the basis of the agreements between NMPA and WHO. It adopts the format recommended by WHO and contains information such as whether the pharmaceutical company conforms to GMP. Let's take a look at the written confirmation for active substances exported to the EU. We call it WC. It has been issued to API manufacturers by NMPA since 2011 on demand of the EU. In order to get these 2 certificates, companies needed to pass on-site GMP inspections, the result of which will be documented in certificates. Last but not least, I would like to talk about how GMP develops in China. In 2010, China refined its GMP standards to basically align them with SHQ-7. SHQ-7 is the standards of the EU and the WHO. China has implemented SHQ-7 since the end of 2015. These years witnessed significant improvement in Chinese companies' compliance with GMP. These companies have met most of ICH's requirements, which is also a prerequisite for China to join the ICH in 2017 and become a member of the ICH Management Committee in 2018 and 2021. These achievements manifest that China's reform of drug regulatory and the development of our pharmaceutical industry are acknowledged by the international community. It also means when making international rules and standards on drugs, China's voice can be heard. In addition, the EU has been discussing with NMPA about listing China as one of the countries entitled to export APIs to the EU without written confirmation. That means that the EU offers to add China into the WC exemption list actually shows that China produced APIs are recognized by the EU for their good quality. I list the websites where you can search the above-mentioned certificates, and all the information is made available online by NMPA. Please feel free to click them. I suggest you, when purchasing APIs from China, you should choose suppliers that meet China's GMP regulations. I would like to discuss the prospect cooperation between China and ASEAN on the API industry. First, trade cooperation between the two sides continues to gain momentum. The total population of the 10 ASEAN countries is nearly 700 million. The ever-growing population and economy generate vast demand for pharmaceuticals, while most of the ASEAN members are developing countries with weak pharmaceutical foundations. Although ASEAN members are encouraging their own pharmaceutical companies to produce medicines locally, they mainly engage in the processing of finished dosages. A large portion of APIs still comes from abroad. China is their largest source of import, but also needs special APIs and basic chemical raw materials from them. Therefore, we see that the import and export volume of APIs between China and ASEAN have always been two-way growth, and there is still a lot of room for growth in the future. Next, let's focus on our cooperation on investment. As we all know, API is a globalized industry. Given that China has put environmental protection and production safety high on the agenda, some API manufacturers tend to transfer their capacities elsewhere. There are two transfer paths. One is to transfer within the country, and the other is to transfer abroad, such as to Southeast Asia or South Asia. For example, Hunan Erkang Pharmaceutical Company Limited invested in projects of starches and pharmaceutical intermediates in Cambodia. Lastly, we should be aware of the opportunities RCEP brought for China-ASEAN cooperation on the trade and investment for APIs. Among others, reduced tariffs, rules of origin, and investment promotion are of paramount significance to lower the cost in the pharmaceutical industry, ensure the free flow of drugs in regional supply chains, and improve ASEAN's capacity in pharmaceutical manufacturing and the health of its people. We should study these opportunities and make full use of them. Now, please allow me to brief you about the work CCC-MHPIE has done to boost China-ASEAN cooperation in the pharmaceutical industry. CCC-MHPIE was founded under the Ministry of Commerce of China to promote the internationalization of China's pharmaceutical industry. We have forged close ties with different government departments and are involved in policy making. Beyond that, as part of the efforts to underpin our pharmaceutical industry, we have been working to facilitate international dialogues and cooperation by establishing working mechanisms with relevant government agencies and industry associations in dozens of countries. We host the CPHI China every year and help prepare for the China International Import-Export. We have gone to great lengths to advance China-ASEAN cooperation in the pharmaceutical industry over recent years. The sixth China-ASEAN Summit for Drug Development and Cooperation, hosted by NMPA and organized by CCC-MHPIE, was held in Guangxi Province this September. It served as a major platform for NMPA to exchange ideas on regulatory policies, laws, and practices with its ASEAN counterparts, conduct more cooperation, and bring more high-quality medical products into China and ASEAN markets. Nearly 1.25 million officials from health departments and agencies in charge of drug supervision and businesses leaders from ASEAN countries took part in this summit online. Besides, we successfully held Chexpo ASEAN in Indonesia in 2018 and 2019. Since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, we have held multiple exchange meetings with Indonesia and Thailand on anti-pandemic measures, trade, and investment. We genuinely hope that more cooperation could be carried out between us with a view to contributing even more to the development of the global pharmaceutical industry and the well-being of all mankind. That's all. Thank you for listening.